Mother Russia Bleeds is a classic beat-em-up game like Double Dragon or Streets of Rage with Hotline Miami levels of violence. Devolver Digital hooked us up with a review copy for this game that just came out on Steam for $15 and will be released on PS4 later this year. It's also a game that you can play by yourself or with 4 players through local co-op, so I brought Fajitas along for the ride.
Hi!
And since we both play it, this is our first cooperative review.
Mother Russia Bleeds has 2 game modes, Story Mode and Arena Mode. Both of these can be played with any number between 1 and 4 players locally, where each player can pick up one of 4 characters that, despite the different stats, behave in a similar fashion. Gameplay wise, Story Mode has some really good moments, but feels very stretched. The bulk of your experience, as you would expect from an old school beat 'em up, is beating up waves of enemies over and over again. But as it turns out, this type of gameplay hasn't aged very well, making the overall game feel very repetitive. There are, however, some awesome moments, as I mentioned. Moments where you're fighting your way through a crowd while escaping a shredder, a couple of boss fights that require a bit more than simply filling up a big gun with countless punches, but these are only a few moments in the game where playing through story mode takes around 3 hours to complete. Means you can count these memorable moments on the finger of a single hand. The basics of gameplay are really solid though. The act of punching, throwing, juggling opponents in the air really feels satisfying. Knocking someone on the ground and following up with a beatdown is just brutal, shocking, and it fuels my own personal bloodlust. But these solid basics are used in mindless section for most part, which ends up trivializing the action. Even with the game throwing different enemy types at you and the occasional surprising weapon, they don't really feel that much different, and this is certainly not enough to break the monotony.
Perhaps because the developers were going for such an authentic, classic beat-em-up experience, there are a lot of flaws to this game which are common to other games of the genre. The repetitive level design we mentioned is one of them. The low combo variety also leads to repetitive combat. Getting shot by an enemy that has barely entered the edge of the screen might have been something reviewers overlooked back in the day because we didn't know any better, but now it just comes off as a cheap move. I've also encountered several occasions where the hitboxes just felt wrong. I was getting hit or failing to hit enemies in situations that didn't make sense. And there are a few modernizations, such as the ground beatdowns and some visual effects that we'll talk more in depth shortly, but perhaps there should have been even more modernizations because I guess this genre just didn't age that well.
The other game mode available in this game is Arena Mode, and we believe that it just brings out the worst in this game. You can unlock different power-ups by reaching wave 10 in any arena level, but while Story Mode has some sporadic cool moments, Arena is just that same repetitive beat-em-up gameplay. Beating waves of enemies also comes with an additional problem because of the amount of bodies that will accumulate on the ground. And while it's really cool to look at the ground and see dozens of dudes who died by your hands, it's very impractical. It's hard to see whether we knocked an enemy down or if we killed them for real, and dogs, who are already the most annoying types of enemies, camouflage themselves amongst the bodies. Just becomes frustrating and cheap.
The gameplay basics are solid, but the way they're used, thanks to the repetitive nature of the genre and the basic level design, ends up not playing on any of its strengths. The narrative of story mode starts off really strong. Your character, no matter who you choose, is straight up a brute caught in the middle of a political struggle in Russia. At which point you're kidnapped, they inject you with some new drug that causes you to hallucinate and question what the hell is going on. But it quickly becomes apparent that the narrative is mainly there to give you a reason to beat different bosses. Your main goal becomes beating up whoever messed up your world and your friends, so you just keep climbing the ladder. From the common street thug to a gang leader to the head politicians behind all of this. And as soon as you realize that, it becomes very predictable. There are a few characters you could form an emotional bond with, but none of these characters are given enough screen time for you to care about them before something drastic happens, which just made the whole thing feel very superficial.
The one thing the story does well is make you question if you're the good guys or if your drugs have gotten a hold of you and turned you into the real bad guys. Something I'm not gonna spoil here in this review. There are 2 different endings if you wanna play the story multiple times, something I really didn't feel like doing because of the gameplay issues we've discussed and because the story just failed to grab me in any way.
The art design is great. Seriously, look at these backgrounds. Soundtrack is awesome as well. Everything about the presentation is really well done for a pixel art game. There are several visual effects that modernize this genre as well, stuff like motion blur, psychedelic colors flashing whenever you're on a drug trip, different settings flashing in and out representing hallucinations. It was definitely my favorite part about this game, how it took the classical genre and modernized it in a way that could only have been done nowadays. I only wish the other aspects of the game follow the same principle.
Overall, I think it's a great classic beat 'em up, but that comes with the genre's flaws as well, and I think times and our standards have changed. We would still recommend it if you're still into the classics and need to get your beat 'em up fix, but for everyone else, this might not be an easy sell.
I like the ways this game modernized the genre, but perhaps it should have done more. This should have been the best beat 'em up of all time considering it's being made in 2016, but it's just on par with the best classics, which most haven't aged well. Thanks for watching our review.
If you have any questions or thoughts about the game yourself, leave them in the comments below.
Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more gaming goodness.
I'm Vegetius,
And I'm Glowku.
see you guys next time.
Bye!